That night was so normal it was offensive. Chicken, rice, a salad that claimed to be fresh. I sat at the table chewing like a civilized adult while the TV explained why people buy houses they can't afford. Cute. At least those people got an illusion of control. She sat across from me, eating slowly, not enjoying it, performing it. Like each bite had to be notarized. Her phone was face down. That's the modern marital equivalent of a locked door. "You're quiet," I said. "I'm not quiet. I'm calm," she replied without looking up. The word calm coming from her always meant one thing. "I already decided, and you're about to be wrong." "All right," I said. "Then I'm calm too, like a monk in traffic." She finally looked at me and smiled. Not a warm smile, more like the hallway light in a cheap apartment building. Technically functioning, emotionally useless. "I need space." I nodded on autopilot because I've heard that sentence before, and it usually comes with either a moving van or a new pet I never agreed to. "Space as in personal time?" I asked carefully. "Space as in 90 days with no intimacy," she said. "It's my therapist's recommendation." She said it the way people announce they're switching phone plans. I set my fork down and stared at her, waiting for the punchline. Sometimes people say insane things and then laugh. It's a lovely tradition. It saves marriages for at least 30 seconds. She didn't laugh. "Your therapist," I repeated. "What therapist?" "Mine," she said, calm as a judge reading a verdict. "I didn't know you were seeing a therapist," I said. "Because you would pressure me," she answered. "You'd interrogate me. You'd create emotional scenes." I leaned forward. "So let me get this straight. We're entering a 90-day desert of silence program because a person I'm hearing about for the first time? Don't dramatize," she said. "These are healthy boundaries. I need to recover." "Recover from what exactly?" I asked. She exhaled slowly, like a teacher who just got asked if this will be on the test. "From your constant expectation, from pressure, from feeling like I have to be available." I smiled, but it wasn't funny. "I didn't realize I was a debt collector." "You're turning it into a joke," she said. "No," I said. "I'm stopping it from becoming a screaming match. But let's do the adult version of this conversation. 90 days is what? An inspection period? A promotional trial? A subscription plan? Marriage Plus? Without the main feature?" Her face didn't move. "I've made a decision," she said. "And it's a healthy one." Healthy and decision in the same sentence is dangerous. That's how people divorce, relocate, or start selling mindset coaching online. "And there are rules," I said. "Yes. Of course there are," I said. "I love rules, especially the kind written without me." She didn't appreciate the sarcasm. Shocking. "Separate bedroom," she said. "Conversations only about logistics. No attempts to process feelings. And absolutely no emotional pressure." I blinked. "Define emotional pressure. If I sigh too loudly, is that pressure? If I look disappointed, is that pressure? If my face commits the crime of having a human expression, is that pressure?" "There," she pointed at me. "You're doing it again. I'm asking a question. You're undermining my recovery." I let out a short laugh, dry, tired. "Recovery. You say it like you broke a wrist and I keep forcing you to deadlift." She softened her voice, which was worse. "If you really love me, you'll handle 90 days. Something clicked inside me. Not anger, not pain, a mental bookmark. "If I love you," I repeated, "I'll handle it." "Yes." "And if I don't handle it," I said, "then I'm..." "What? A bad husband?" She gave me that look women use when they want you to convict yourself. I didn't say that. Of course she didn't. She simply left the judgment hanging in the air and waited for me to agree with it on my own. I leaned back slowly. "Okay." She blinked. "Okay?" "Yes," I said. "Okay." Her eyes narrowed, as if my calmness wasn't part of the script she'd rehearsed. "So you agree?" "Do I have a choice?" I asked. You could show support, she said. Interest, care. I'm showing support, I said. I'm not yelling. You're being sarcastic. It's my way of staying sane, I said, honest enough to be dangerous. She stood up. I'll sleep in the guest room. She said it like I was supposed to stop her. Grab her hand. Beg. Collapse. Promise I'd do better and work on myself and be more emotionally fluent. I did none of that. I just watched her walk out, steady, composed, unhurried. And that was the weirdest part. She moved like she'd practiced this exit. While she gathered a few things in the hallway, I stayed at the table listening to the clock tick. Her phone was still face down. Then it buzzed. Quick, sharp. She snatched it instantly, glanced at the screen, and her whole expression tightened into something prepared. I didn't see the screen. I saw the reaction. I'd seen it before. In people who just got a message they shouldn't be caught reading. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said too fast. Just a friend. A friend. Sure. The guest room door clicked shut. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was dense, like smoke. When I finally lay down in our bed alone, I realized something unsettling. I didn't feel humiliated. I felt warned. Like someone had placed a "Caution wet floor" sign at the doorway, and for the first time I thought, okay, I'm going to see who spilled it. The next morning she was cheerful. Too cheerful for someone who was recovering. She made coffee, smiled at the kids, spoke to me politely. Bank teller polite. Sterile. I'll make a schedule, she said while the kids fought over cereal. A schedule for what? I asked. Life, she said. Chores, logistics, to avoid conflict. There won't be conflict, I said. I'm officially not allowed to have emotions now. She pretended not to hear me. That day I noticed something else. When she texted, she held the phone at an angle that blocked reflections. Not in the microwave door, not in the window, not even in a spoon. Like she'd trained for it. I didn't ask questions. Not because I was scared. Because I understood the trap. Any question would be filed under pressure. Any reaction would be called instability. Any attempt to talk would become emotional coercion. Classic, clean, modern. That evening our friends dropped by. The kind of couple we used to laugh with, stay up late with, argue about movies with like normal people. Now they looked at me like I was a glass with a crack in it. Technically usable, but no one wants to risk it. How are you? Her friend asked too softly. Great, I said. And you? How are you really? Her husband followed up, smiling but cautious. I got it instantly. She'd already talked to them. I felt a laugh rise in my chest. Not happy. The kind you get when you realize the show is already running and nobody handed you the script. I'm fantastic, I said. We have healthy boundaries now. I live inside an online course called Mindfulness for Beginners, except there's no certificate and I still pay the bills. My wife shot me a look like I'd touched her white blouse with greasy hands. He's joking, she told them smoothly. We're working on recovery. She said recovery like I'd caused an accident. They nodded. Understanding. Sympathetic. The kind of sympathy that doesn't help, you just feel smaller. And that's when it landed. This wasn't just 90 days with no intimacy. This was 90 days of rewriting reality. Because she wasn't only separating from me physically, she was separating me socially, quietly, politely, one conversation at a time. I looked at her across the room. She smiled at our guests, calm and bright, like she'd always been the reasonable one. Then her eyes met mine for half a second. And in that half second, I saw something colder than calm. I saw confidence, like she wasn't testing boundaries, like she was measuring how long it would take before I broke. The next few days were smooth in the same way ice is smooth. Looks safe, breaks bones quietly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't fight. She just managed me, like I was a task she'd finally learned to delegate. Just a reminder, she said one morning, sliding a sticky note onto the counter like it was a legal document. No heavy talks, please respect my process. Heavy talks, like I was trying to discuss nuclear policy over breakfast. Of course, I said. From now on, I'll only speak in weather reports and grocery lists. At dinner, she talked to the kids, logistics, school, weekend plans, normal mom voice, normal mom face. If you didn't live here, you'd think we were a healthy family with a solid routine. One evening, I tried a simple, calm approach. No emotion, no processing, just clarity. Can we sit for 5 minutes? I asked. I want to understand the rules so I don't accidentally cross a line. She looked at me like I'd just admitted to a crime. You're doing it again. Doing what? I'm literally asking how to do this the right way. You're trying to get around my boundaries, she said, voice steady, almost bored. You want a discussion. That's pressure. I stared at her. So me asking what you want is pressure. Yes. Okay, I said. Then I'll guess. Her mouth tightened. Don't be dramatic. I'm not dramatic, I said. I'm just learning the new sport. Apparently the rules change every quarter. She walked away. Calm, controlled, victorious. The social part started right after. At first it was subtle. Messages I didn't get included in, plans made last minute, calls she used to put on speaker now taken in another room. Then it got clearer. A friend I used to joke with at gatherings suddenly stopped replying to my texts. My wife's sister, who usually greeted me like I was furniture, upgraded to greeting me like I was furniture that might collapse. One day, I heard her on the phone in the hallway. She didn't know I was close enough to catch it. I'm just tired, she said, soft and shaky, like she was auditioning for sympathy. He doesn't respect when I say no, and then he acts like I'm crazy. I froze, not because I was hurt, because I understood the direction. She wasn't just creating distance, she was building a story. And in that story, I wasn't a husband who was confused. I was a problem. Later that night, I brought it up carefully. Calm voice. No heat. Are you telling people I'm unstable? I asked. She blinked twice, slowly. I'm telling people the truth. What truth? That you don't listen, she said. That you push. That you make everything about you. Interesting, I said. Because from where I'm standing, the only thing I'm doing is existing in my own house and trying not to get labeled for breathing wrong. You're proving my point, she said immediately. There it was again, the instant translation, the conversion machine. She could turn anything into evidence. I looked at her and smiled, polite as a stranger. All right, I said, then I'll stop proving it. And I did. I stopped trying to defend myself in real time. Because defending yourself in her courtroom was the whole trap. She wanted a reaction. She wanted a raised voice, a slammed door, something she could package neatly. So I gave her nothing she could frame. A week in, the kids started reflecting her tone. Not exactly her words at first, but the message. Dad, my son said one afternoon when I asked my wife a simple question about weekend plans, don't make mom upset. I paused. My wife didn't even look up from her phone. Buddy, I said gently, I'm not making anybody upset. I'm asking about Saturday. He frowned like he didn't understand why I was confused. Mom says you stress her out. There it was, delivered by a child like it was a weather fact. My wife finally spoke, still not looking at me. See, even the kids feel it. I stared at her. So now my kid is a witness? She looked up then, calm eyes. Don't twist it, she said. They're sensitive to energy. Energy. The word people use when they want to accuse you without specifics. Okay, I said. Then I'll lower my energy. My wife's jaw tightened. She hated that I could joke without breaking. It ruined the picture she was painting. And that's when I saw it clearly. She wasn't just pulling away, she was replacing me. Not with a man yet. At least not in my visible world. but with a narrative. A narrative where she was healing and I was the obstacle. She started needing space more often. Errands that took too long, work meetings that suddenly existed on weekends, quick coffee that lasted hours. Whenever she came back, she'd look refreshed, like space wasn't empty at all. One night she came home late and I didn't ask where she'd been. I just said, "Kids are asleep. Food's in the fridge." She paused in the doorway like she expected interrogation. When it didn't come, she looked almost annoyed. "You're not going to ask?" she said. "No," I replied. "I'm respecting your boundaries." Her eyes narrowed. "You're doing it to punish me." I laughed once, quiet. "I'm doing it to survive." "You think you're being mature, but you're being cold." "Funny," I said. "I learned from the best." That did it. Not an explosion, but something small flickered behind her calm. For a moment, she wasn't the composed therapist-approved queen of boundaries. She was irritated, and irritation meant I wasn't behaving the way she planned. She took a breath and reset her face. Calm again, always calm. "I'm going to bed," she said. She walked away. And in the quiet that followed, I did something I hadn't done yet. I stopped asking myself what I did wrong, and started asking what she was building. Because this wasn't random. This was organized. And organized things usually leave patterns. And patterns can be recorded. The next day, I opened a note on my phone and wrote the first line. Just facts. No emotion, no story, no accusations. Date, time, what was said, what changed. Not because I was plotting revenge like a cartoon villain, because if someone is quietly rewriting you into the bad guy, you either let them write the ending, or you start keeping receipts. And for the first time since that chicken and rice announcement, I felt something close to calm. Not the fake calm she wore like a costume, real calm. The kind that comes when you stop begging for clarity and start collecting it. Because if this was a war, it wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet. And I was done being the only one fighting blind. By the second week, the silence had structure. We spoke like co-workers assigned to the same project, but hoping for different promotions. Kids have practice at 5. Dinner's in the fridge. Bill is due Friday. Efficient, polite, emotionally vacant. If marriage had a waiting room, this was it. What changed wasn't the distance. It was how comfortable she looked inside it. She moved through the house lighter, slept better, smiled more, just never at me. And once you notice relief in someone who claims to be hurting, you start asking quieter questions. Not out loud, just internally. One afternoon, she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. Not wide open, just careless enough to be human. I wasn't planning to look. I really wasn't. But intention doesn't matter much when reality taps you on the shoulder. A calendar notification sat in the corner of the screen. Friday, 3:30 p.m. No name, just a location. A hotel I recognized. Not because I'd been there recently. Because we had been there years ago, on a weekend trip when everything still felt simple and temporary in a good way. I didn't touch the laptop, didn't scroll, didn't search. I just stood there long enough to feel something settle into place. Not shock, not rage, confirmation. I closed the screen gently, like the moment itself might break if handled roughly. When she came home later, she looked peaceful. The kind of calm people get after making progress toward a decision they haven't announced yet. "How was your day?" she asked casually, dropping her keys in the bowl. "Quiet," I said. "Productive." She nodded, satisfied with an answer that required no follow-up. At dinner, the kids argued about homework, the dog barked at nothing, and life performed its usual background noise. Normal on the surface, carefully rearranged underneath. I watched her laugh at something on her phone. Quick smile, private, not for the room, for someone else. And for the first time, I didn't feel the urge to ask who. Because the question was no longer useful. I already knew enough. That night, I opened my notes again. Time. Hotel on calendar. Behavior unchanged. Mood elevated. Still no emotions written down. Just facts. Facts don't get twisted later. Facts don't get called dramatic. Facts don't argue. A few days passed. She became even more certain of my silence, like a scientist confirming a theory through repetition. Less caution, more confidence. One evening, her phone buzzed on the couch while she was in the shower. I didn't pick it up. Didn't need to. The screen lit just enough for a preview to show. Miss you already. No name. Just the message. Soft, casual, familiar. The kind of sentence that doesn't belong to confusion. It belongs to continuity. I looked away before the screen went dark, like respecting a boundary that technically no longer respected me. When she came back, wrapped in a towel, she checked the phone immediately. Reflex again. Always reflex. Anything important? I asked, voice neutral. Nothing urgent, she said. Which was true, in a way. Urgency is for surprises. This wasn't a surprise anymore. This was a timeline. She nodded slowly and walked to the bedroom without another word. And that's when I understood the final piece of the shift. I wasn't trying to save the marriage anymore. I was observing it, like something already finished, just waiting for paperwork. The next morning, while she drove the kids to school, I made a phone call. Quiet voice. Simple question. I'd like to schedule a consultation, I said. A short pause on the other end. Professional tone. Regarding what kind of matter? I looked through the windshield at nothing in particular. Family, I said. Preventive, if possible. We set a date. When I hung up, my hands were steady. No shaking, no drama, just direction. Because once the truth stops being emotional and becomes practical, everything changes. You sleep differently, think differently, speak less. And most importantly, you stop hoping the story will fix itself. That evening she mentioned, almost casually, next week might be busy for me, extra meetings. I understand, I said. She nodded, relieved by the absence of resistance. From her perspective, the plan was working perfectly. Distance established. What she didn't see was that silence can mean surrender, but sometimes it means preparation. And preparation, unlike emotion, doesn't make noise. The lawyer's office didn't look dramatic enough for the situation. No dark wood, no thunder outside the window, just neutral walls, organized folders, and a man who had probably seen 100 versions of my life walk through that same door. He listened without interrupting. No sympathy performance, no moral speeches, just facts going in, quietly arranging themselves. How certain are you? He asked when I finished. Certain enough to be here, I said. He nodded once. That was apparently the correct answer. Then we prepare, he said, not emotionally, structurally. I almost smiled at that. Finally, a language I could use. We talked about timelines, finances, documentation, patterns of behavior that matter in court, and the many that don't. Feelings, it turns out, are legally uninteresting. Records are not. When I left his office, the world outside looked exactly the same. Cars moving, people on phones, someone arguing about coffee like it was life or death. At home, nothing had changed on the surface. She still moved through the rooms with quiet confidence, still careful, still composed. But once you start looking for structure, you see it everywhere. Small cash withdrawals that didn't match our usual rhythm. A new account notification buried in email archives. Subscriptions canceled that only affected me. Not reckless moves, prepared ones. Like someone slowly packing a suitcase inside the walls of daily routine. That night she sat across from me helping our daughter with homework, patient and warm. A perfect scene. The kind people post online with captions about gratitude. I watched quietly and realized something uncomfortable. She wasn't pretending. She genuinely believed she was the good one in this story. That made everything more dangerous. Because villains hesitate. Believers don't. Later, when the kids were asleep, she spoke from the doorway. I think we're handling this maturely, she said. Handling. like this was a scheduling conflict. I agree, I said. She watched me a moment longer than usual. You've been quiet, she said. Just work, I answered. She nodded, but not fully convinced. Don't shut me out, she added, like it was nothing. I almost smiled at that. I'm fine, I said. Just tired. That was enough to end it. She didn't like that answer. You could see it in the way her shoulders tightened before she relaxed them again. Control prefers noise. Silence hides variables. Over the next week, her confidence kept growing. Longer absences, fewer explanations, almost relief, like she was already halfway into her next life and just waiting for paperwork to catch up. I kept collecting details. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to form a line when placed side by side. Dates, transfers, messages without names, meetings that overlapped with stories that didn't. The second meeting with the lawyer was shorter. He looked through the documents, calm and methodical. This is useful, he said, not impressed, just precise. What matters most? I asked. Consistency, he replied. Courts trust patterns more than moments. When I got home, she was in unusually good mood. Soft music in the kitchen, cooking something that required effort, even a small smile when she saw me. For a second, just a second, it looked like the old version of us. Memory is cruel like that, shows you ghosts at convenient times. Dinner will be ready soon, she said. Smells good? I answered. And it did. Warm, familiar, dangerous. We ate almost peacefully. Small talk, careful neutrality. Then she set her fork down with deliberate calm. I've been thinking, she said. I don't think this marriage is healthy for either of us. There it was. Not emotional, not sudden, scheduled. I nodded slowly, like she'd confirmed a meeting time we both already knew. Okay, I said. That word again. Simple, quiet, uncooperative with drama. She blinked just once. You don't want to fight for us? She asked. Interesting phrasing, as if the last weeks had been teamwork. I'm not interested in fighting, I said. I'm interested in truth. Silence stretched between us. Thin, sharp, honest. For the first time, uncertainty touched her expression. Very small, but real, because calm surrender was expected. We'll need to talk about logistics, she said carefully. We will, I agreed. No anger, no pleading, no collapse, just movement toward the inevitable. And in that moment, something invisible shifted. She thought she was ending the story. What she didn't realize was that the ending had already started writing itself somewhere else. Quietly, legally, irreversibly. And for the first time since the 90-day sentence began, I wasn't waiting for the future anymore. I was ready for it. By the fourth week, the routine felt permanent. Not stable. Just rehearsed enough to look real from the outside. We moved around each other with professional courtesy, shared space, separate gravity. She stopped pretending to explain her schedule. I stopped pretending to need explanations. Oddly peaceful, like the quiet after a decision nobody announced out loud. The lawyer's checklist grew slowly. Bank statements, account access, insurance details, copies of anything that could suddenly disappear. None of it dramatic. Just preparation disguised as paperwork. At home, her confidence kept expanding into the empty space between us. She started redecorating small things, moving items that used to be shared, creating subtle borders inside the same house. Not loud moves, permanent ones, like someone rearranging a life before officially leaving it. The kids didn't notice the strategy. They noticed tone. Children always do. Mom says we shouldn't bother you when you're in a mood, my daughter said one evening, completely casual. I looked at her gently. I'm not in a mood, I said. She shrugged. That's just what Mom said. Of course it was. Not an attack, just positioning. Careful enough to deny later, clear enough to matter now. I didn't argue. Arguing with a sentence delivered by a child is like shouting into a mirror. You only look worse. Instead, I asked about her homework and helped her finish it. Another week passed. Her phone stopped hiding as carefully. Confidence replacing caution. One night a message lit the screen while it rested on the counter between us. She saw it at the same moment I did. No panic. Just a quick reach, a turned screen, a neutral face put on a second too late. We both pretended nothing happened, because both were already getting ready to go out. She just didn't know I was ahead of her. That was becoming our strongest shared skill. The lawyer meeting after that was different. He reviewed everything quietly, then leaned back. "If nothing changes," he said, "you're in a strong position." Nothing changes. Funny phrase, because everything had already changed, just not visibly. At home that evening, she was unusually warm, cooking again, soft music, even a small story about her day that didn't sound defensive. During dinner, she watched me more than she ate, measuring something, waiting. Finally, she spoke. "I think we should start discussing next steps." There it was again, language without emotion. "What kind of steps?" I asked calmly. "Practical ones," she said. "Separation, logistics, what's best for the kids?" Best for the kids, the most flexible phrase in any adult conflict. I nodded once. Okay. No argument, no shock, just acceptance delivered too smoothly to feel safe. Her expression tightened, not the reaction she expected. "You're not even going to try to fix this?" she asked. I met her eyes evenly. "I don't fix things alone," I said. Silence followed. Real silence. No performance left inside it. For the first time, she looked unsure of the timing, like she had stepped onto a stage and realized the script had changed. She left the room with controlled steps that felt slightly less controlled than before. That night, I didn't feel angry. Didn't feel relieved either. Just steady. Because the waiting part was almost over. The last week arrived without ceremony. No countdown, no tension anyone else could see. Just small, ordinary days stacked quietly on top of each other, like nothing important was ending underneath them. She moved through the house with a kind of calm certainty that almost looked like relief. Not happiness, something cleaner than that. Finality. Her calls happened in the open now, not fully transparent, just no longer careful. Confidence does that. It removes caution before the outcome is secured. I kept my routine simple. Work, kids, paperwork, silence where silence helped. The lawyer sent one short message 2 days before the 90 days ended. "Everything is ready. Let her move first." So I waited. Waiting used to feel powerless. Now it felt precise. On the morning of day 90, the house was unusually quiet. Even the kids spoke softer, like they sensed a shift they couldn't name. She was already dressed when I walked into the kitchen, composed, neutral, almost formal. Not someone starting a conversation, someone delivering a decision. "I scheduled a meeting this afternoon," she said, pouring coffee she didn't drink. "With an attorney." I nodded once, like she had just confirmed the weather. "That won't be necessary," I said calmly. She looked up. A small pause, barely visible, but real. "What do you mean?" she asked. I reached into my bag and took out a thin folder. "I already took care of it," I said, placing it on the table between us. She didn't touch the folder right away. Just looked at it, then at me, like the room had shifted half an inch and she wasn't sure how. "You... what?" she said. "I spoke to an attorney weeks ago," I answered. "Everything's been prepared. You don't have to schedule anything." Silence filled the kitchen, slow and heavy. Not explosive, just unfamiliar. Because this moment wasn't in the version she had rehearsed. Her fingers finally moved, opening the folder carefully, as if speed might change what was inside. Pages turned, eyes scanning, breath tightening just slightly with every line that confirmed the same quiet fact. I wasn't behind. I wasn't confused. And I wasn't waiting anymore. "When did you do this?" she asked, voice lower now, less certain. During the 90 days, I said. You asked for space. I used it. She kept looking at the papers, but she wasn't really reading anymore. She was recalculating. Because confidence depends on timing. And timing had just moved somewhere she couldn't reach. You were planning this? She asked. No, I said quietly. I was preparing for the truth. That landed harder than anger would have. For the first time since this started, her calm wasn't steady. Still controlled, but thinner, like glass under pressure. She closed the folder slowly, keeping her hand on it a second longer than necessary, as if letting go would confirm something final. I didn't think you'd, she began, then stopped. Pay attention? I finished gently. She didn't answer. There wasn't a clean response left, only the quiet sound of certainty slipping inch by inch into something else. And the strange part was, I didn't feel victory, just clarity, because this was never about winning, only about no longer standing in a story that was being written without me. I left the folder on the table and took my keys. I'll move out today, I said. We'll handle the rest through the lawyers. She didn't argue, just nodded once, still looking at the papers. That was the end of the conversation. Packing took less than an hour. Clothes, laptop, documents, nothing sentimental, only what mattered. I rented a small furnished apartment across town. Temporary, quiet, enough. The first night there was simple. No drama, just silence without tension. After that, everything moved through lawyers. Emails instead of talks, schedules instead of arguments, facts instead of feelings. We only saw each other when necessary, usually about the kids. The court date came about 3 weeks later. Small room, no audience. Just lawyers, documents, and a judge who wanted clarity, not emotion. Her lawyer spoke first, said the marriage had become unstable, said distance and pressure made separation necessary. Focused on what was best for the children. Standard language. Nothing surprising. When it was our turn, my lawyer stayed calm. He presented timeline, financial records, messages that didn't match her version of events, proof of preparation before the separation, no accusations, just documents. The judge asked a few direct questions. By the end, the direction was clear. Not a victory. Just a result that wasn't under her control anymore. Months passed without anything dramatic happening. The paperwork finished. The kids adjusted faster than either of us expected. Life tends to move forward once adults stop pulling it in opposite directions. I kept the small apartment for a while, then moved somewhere closer to their school. Nothing symbolic about it, just practical. Peace, it turns out, is usually built from practical choices. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.